Everyone, thanks for joining me here today. So in today's tutorial, we are going to deploy a full LAMP stack using Docker step by step. So that's Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So the Linux obviously is the operating system. Apache is the web server that hosts the website. And then MySQL is a database for the application, and PHP is the web language. So this Dockerizing the application will uh, eliminate the reason for manual installs. So no more configuration nightmares. So it'll be automated deployment. So let's start by creating a new project folder where we'll keep our configuration files. So we're going to use mkdir for make directory, and then we're going to create the directory as lamp docker. So let's take a look. So here we see the directory there. So we're going to cd into that directory. Once we're in the folder, we need to create a Docker Compose file. So I'm just going to use Vim as my editor, and then I'm going to create Docker Compose YML file. And then first thing I'll do is I will put in the version number. And then declare services. The first service we'll declare is for Apache web server. And we're aiming for PHP version 8.2 Apache. So let's see here. PHP and 8.2 Apache. And then we are going to name our container, and we'll simply name it Apache. And we're going to declare our ports here. So ports, we'll choose 8080 and then 80. So we'll be accessing the Apache application in port 8080, and then basically it'll route to port 80 of the web application inside the container. And then we have to declare volume, so where our data resides. Going to choose www and then var www html. So whatever files that we have here, this volume, this folder, it will be mounted to var www/html in the actual Apache web server container. And then it will depend on MySQL, the database. So let's see if there are any issues here. So we're going to do Docker Compose Issues as in syntax issues, right? So config. Okay, so as you see, it caught one of my errors here. So we're going to do docker compose again. We open up the file. We'll rename it to from port to ports, and then we're going to save again, and then see the configuration again. So as you can see, it's prompting that MySQL is not defined, which is correct because we are going to define that right now. We're going to define the MySQL now. So MySQL, and the image that we'll be using is MySQL 5.7. So we're going to name the container MySQL. Going to set the restart state as always. And we're going to specify some variables here, so they're related to MySQL variables. Just going to copy this again. Oops. So we'll define the MySQL port. And finally, we're going to specify the volumes, which is MySQL data, which will point to the var lib MySQL of the container. Okay, so we're going to save, and then we're going to do a check. Okay, I don't see any errors, so let's continue. So our Docker Compose file is ready, but we have to create the necessary folders that we declared in our Docker Compose file. So www, obviously it'll host the web file that we need to deploy, and then we have to create that file. So as you can see, I created the www here, and then we're going to create an index.php file there. So let's go here, and then going to create an index.php file. So it'll be a very basic PHP script. And something to keep in mind, so even the passwords will be very, very simple. So obviously they're not secure, and you shouldn't be using the same thing in production, or doing any sort of coding that requires a deployment for your company or anything like that. This is just for training purposes, and do not use the same method of specifying, let's say, clear passwords in clear text strings for your password and things like that. So do not use that. So we're going to declare a variable called server name here. So it'll be MySQL, and then we're going to declare a username, which will be user, password, as you can see, it's not secure password, and it's not encrypted, so do not use the same password. This should be in a separate file, and they should be encrypted, right? So we need to create a connection. And then we're passing each of these here. Right. And then we'll check the connection. all this is doing is just checking the connection. So if the connection initiation of this connection results in an error, then it will just display connection failed and with the error, and then if it's successful, we'll just simply point out it's successful. So let's save this. Okay, so let's take a look if we can fire up our stack here. Docker compose, and then it'll be up and then D. This will likely end up in error due to MySQL, but let's take a look. Okay, so looks like no errors and the build was successful. Let's take a look here. So as you can see, our application is running, our PHP and then our MySQL. Okay, so let's see if our web application is up or not here. So, okay, so as you can see, we received an error as predicted for MySQL. So looks like we need to change certain things in our Docker compose file. So let's revisit our Docker compose file to see if we declared MySQL or install it or anything like that. So let's go back a directory, and then we're going to open up Docker compose file here. So let's see here. So since our application is not working, let's take that down first. So Docker, I think so we'll start Apache and MySQL. So as you can see, we're going back to the default that we had. Okay, to solve this issue, let's create a file here, Docker file. The reason we're creating a Docker file is because we're going to declare certain things here, and then we'll have Docker compose build from this file. So from PHP .2 Apache, the same as we had from in our Docker compose file, and then we'll use run command to install Docker PHP extension and then MySQL. And then we will enable our site here. And then we need to change our Docker compose file here, and then instead of image, we're just going to put build. So it'll build from the Docker file. So build, and then let's see here. Let's do a configuration check that we have done before. We missed the dot here. Okay, so no errors here. Let's try now. Okay, so looks like no errors at least from the Docker's end. So let's see if our containers are up or not. So lamp Docker Apache is up, MySQL is up. So let's refresh the page, hoping that this resolved. Okay, so as you can see, connected successfully. So we deployed lamp stack successfully. So if you're starting out with web development and you're playing around with Linux, you might want like a web interface for MySQL to manage the database side of things, so it makes it easier to have like a GUI environment when you're starting out. For LAMP, a popular web interface would be phpMyAdmin. So let's try installing that here. So we're going to open up the Docker Compose file here again. Before actually we do that, let's stop our web application. Okay, so let's open up our Docker Compose file, and then we'll add a new service here. So we'll name the container phpMyAdmin. The host will be MySQL. So the ports it'll be using will be 8081, because 8080 is already taken by the LAMP stack here. So port 8081 and then 80. So it'll depend on MySQL. Let's double check our work. phpMyAdmin, images phpMyAdmin, and then container name is phpMyAdmin, and then environment we are declaring MySQL is the host, and the ports we have these. So let's save our work. Let's check the configuration to see if there are any errors. So it's complaining about the ports here. Okay, I think it's the spacing issue here. Let's check. Okay, so let's try running this, I guess. Okay, so if we do docker ps to check what containers are running, we can see we have php myadmin running on port 8081. So if we try reloading here, so we see php myadmin. So the password would be the same password that we use in our PHP file. If you remember, if we go to www and then we just cat the index.php, so you'll see that we're using the username user, and then we're using the password user pass. See, here's our database. So yeah, so this is, as you can see, it's a very simple GUI to use. So when you're starting out, if you're not comfortable with playing around with the database using command line, you can always use something like this to create databases, things like that here. So what we had deployed is LAMP stack. So now we're free to experiment with it. We are free to create websites. If you're a developer, you're likely using this stack to deploy things, to test out new things in terms of like web functionality, things like that. So but if you're a beginner and if you're doubting that, hey, so what does this do, just a string that says connected successfully, just to show you what we can do, just copy pasting stuff. Let's just open up our index file here, index.php file. What we'll do is we'll actually replace it. So we're going to move this file into a backup file, and then we're going to create a new index.php file. And then here I'll just copy paste something that I found on the internet here. And then I'm going to save this, and then it's just a landing website. I don't know what it looks like. It'll be fun to take a look at what it looks like. So we're going to do docker compose up again. Actually, let's just use this, whatever we had before. Okay, so let's build this again. So it's already up, so let's refresh the page here. As you can see, we just copy pasted something and we have this beautiful website. So this is the power of open source technology like LAMP stack, where you can deploy things using containers. They're very lightweight, so it doesn't take up your whole VM, or if you're using actual bare metal servers, it doesn't use the whole operating system. It just uses containerized, very specific libraries, very specific applications to deploy your code. So as you can see, like, you can deploy beautiful things using this OpenStack, this kind of open source technologies. So thanks for joining here. So if you have any questions, let me know. We'll be back with newer tutorials such as how to install other web frameworks like MERN stack and other things. Thank you.